After almost 60 years of strong bipartisan support, Congress has cut all federal funding for public media, stripping away a critical pillar of support for local stations like ours. At Vermont Public, we'll lose at least $2 million this year. If all our sustaining members increase their gift by $7 per month, we'll close that gap for good. Increase your gift today and help close the gap at vermontpublic.org/update.
From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Thursday, September 4th, and here are today's headlines. The Vermont Medical Society has won a legal battle against the Trump administration. The organization and other doctors' groups sued the Department of Health and Human Services after it deleted data from federal websites related to a variety of topics including LGBTQ healthcare, HIV, and pregnancy. The move stemmed from an exclusive order to remove the term gender from government documents. Vermont Medical Society Director Jessa Barnard said the group joined the suit after hearing concerns from doctors in the state.
And so when we reached out to our members and said, is this impacting your ability to care for your patients? We heard from a number saying, yes, this has an impact here in Vermont. We want to weigh in and be involved.
The Medical Society announced a settlement Wednesday that requires the federal government to restore the deleted materials. The Trump administration says it deleted the health data as part of its campaign against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. The Scott administration's plan to have state employees come into the office more often is facing pushback from the union. The Vermont State Employees Union is organizing its roughly 8,000 members to oppose the change. Many employees have been working remotely since the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2020, but now the administration is telling workers to come into the office at least 3 days a week starting December 1st. Steve Howard leads the State Employees Union, and he says many people prefer working remotely.
They have shown that they have been able to produce really positive results. What I think the state should be focused on is the results, not, is the work getting done, not where is the work getting done.
The Scott administration argues an in-person work environment promotes collaboration. Officials say they want to work with the union to make the transition as smooth as possible. According to the latest state survey, the change would affect about 1/3 of the state workforce. In Windham County, tension involving union members is also playing out amid contract talks between school bus drivers and their contracted employer. But for now, the drivers contracted to serve Windham's Southeast Supervisory Union schools are back on the roads after their employer lifted a lockout earlier this week that kept them out of work. The lockout stemmed from ongoing contract disputes between the company, Travel Cuz, and the bus drivers' union. Replacement drivers had to handle transportation for the first few days of school. The district superintendent apologized to families in a letter for what he called inadequate planning and poor service by the bus company. Union Chapter President Curtis Clough represents the bus drivers, and he says he hopes a contract agreement can be reached that reflects their contributions.
I think that the last week has proven the value of those workers and their experience and their knowledge and their skill.
Travel Cuz says in a press release its hope from the start has been to reach an agreement that is, quote, fair for employees and affordable for the town while prioritizing students. The state's largest hospital recently changed how its operating rooms deliver anesthesia like nitrous oxide. A spokesperson for UVM Medical Center says in a press release the switch is reducing greenhouse gas emissions that impact the climate. They say by using self-contained anesthesia tanks in its OR instead of piping lines, it eliminated emissions equal to nearly 500 metric tons of carbon dioxide. That's equivalent to the carbon footprint of a year's worth of energy from 65 homes. Hospital officials also say the change will save the hospital more than $10,000 per year and reduce nitrous oxide purchases by 88%. They also say it does not impact patient care. And a longtime local town manager has died. Stuart Hurd served as Bennington's town manager since 1992. The Bennington Banner reports that prior to that position, Hurd spent 20 years working for the town. Bennington's select board confirmed Hurd's death this past Saturday following a long illness. He was 77 years old. And coming up, the drought conditions that have persisted through most of this summer will likely have an unwanted effect on one of Vermont's most critical tourism seasons. We consider a fall of muted leaf color after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from SRH Law, believing that values and mission still matter. When you need good counsel for your values-based work, whether it's securing our energy future, building affordable and sustainable communities, or advancing a values-led economy, they're here to help you make a difference. SRHLaw.com. Making a difference is our practice.
This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
This summer's drought conditions will affect the upcoming fall foliage season. In some parts of the region, leaves are turning brown and dropping early before they have a chance to show their bright fall colors. Vermont Edition's Michaela Lafrac spoke with University of Vermont forestry professor Bill Keaton on Wednesday, and he helps us better understand how the low rainfall is affecting our region's trees.
Fall foliage has been very poorly studied, but we're just now beginning to wake up to the fact that climate change and particularly extreme conditions seem to be affecting our fall foliage season. And sometimes in peculiar and unexpected ways. Like one year, because of drought, the onset of fall color may be earlier than normal. Another year, because of warming fall nights, it might arrive later.
The dry conditions have been very evident to me this summer. What have you noticed?
I've noticed the same thing. I've noticed a lot of browning up of leaves and early leaf drop. This is a very typical drought stress, as we say. The very dry August and continuing now into September is clearly stressing the trees, and they're just beginning to shut down the activity in their leaves a little bit earlier than normal. It's a little bit perplexing because we also had a very wet spring, above average rainfall in May and into June. And that actually creates other types of stresses in trees. And then now, that has switched to a drought condition. And these are the types of, weather fluctuations and extreme weather conditions that we're likely to see more of in the future that just seem to be sort of really mixing things up when it comes to fall foliage.
Is this, period of extreme wetness in the spring and then dryness in the summer, is this just the vagaries of nature, or do you see a direct tie to larger forces like climate change?
There has been a lot of research on this, really excellent research on the shifting climate patterns in Vermont and northern New England. And we are clearly getting more rainfall in general in summer. That is a very clear trend over the last several decades, particularly in early summer, spring and early summer, as we've seen. But then, idiosyncratically or sort of oddly, we also are getting more of these dry periods and extreme drought conditions, particularly in late summer and sometimes in the fall. And it seems like a switch can be flipped and we can go from these above average rainfall conditions to the dry conditions that we're seeing right now. But to answer your question, yes, the data are very clear that there is a long-term trend where we're getting more of these types of conditions.
Feels a little superficial to ask you about fall foliage when we're discussing lots of our fall foliage in this region comes from oak and maple trees. Does drought affect them differently?
Oak is one of our more drought tolerant species, and it tends to grow on our drier sites. And really in Vermont, it's just sort of fingering up the Champlain Valley and maybe in a few other places that are a bit warmer. So oak, some of our pines like white pine, pitch pine, where it grows on more unusual sites, those might be what we call future adapted species that are going to grow better in the droughtier conditions of the future. But maple for sure is drought sensitive. We're certainly seeing more of this browning up and early decline in leaves in maples.
You can find Vermont Edition's full conversation on drought and our forests on the show's podcast feed or at vermontpublic.org. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Peter Hirschfeld, Bob Kinzel, Adia Golston, Mary Engish, and Jen Jarecki. Today's episode was edited by Stephanie Colombini, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. Talk to you tomorrow.